And welcome to Ask the Experts on News Talk 1290 CJBK Tuesday morning with you right through until noon. Very important topic we are going to be talking about today. Hey, as they say, if you eat, you should be thanking a farmer. And today on the program, we have a couple of special guests, and they are from the Ontario Federation of Agriculture. You can visit the website, very easy to find and very informative as well, ofa.on.ca. We welcome to the program off the top Janine Lunn. She is the with capacity development at the OFA, and we welcome Janine to the show. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's our pleasure. Great to have you on the program. And we also have Loren Van Ewyk with us, a return guest. Great to have you back on the program, Loren.
Thanks, Ryan. Good to be here.
Yeah, and you are a member of the Lambton Federation of Agriculture and also a social worker in Lambton County. You're also, and I always love saying this when we have a family farmer on the program, it's great to highlight that as well, which also must make you very proud to be able to say that to people that you are a family farmer.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely, yes.
Excellent. And there's a lot of hardworking family farmers out there in this area listening to the program today. Janine, I'll go back and start with you and the Ontario Federation of Agriculture. When you tell people what you do, capacity development is the area that you are in. Tell us a little bit about, first off, what capacity development means, and tell us a bit about the OFA and who you work with and who you represent.
Sure. That's a lot of questions at once, but I can do it. So I work with the Federation of Agriculture, and when people ask me what I do, I say that I am involved in outreach and leadership development, and I do a lot of workshops bringing in different speakers and topics to support our farmers. And basically what OFA is doing is being a voice for Ontario's farmers. We represent 38,000 Ontario farmers, and so our task with our board of directors is to ensure that when regulations are coming or when things are changing in our industry, that we have a clear message that explains how our business will work under the best conditions, and we help farmers to be able to continue producing the food and fuel and fiber that Ontario and Canada needs.
Excellent. And just due to the nature of the business, I mean, we drive through rural Ontario and we see all this vast farmland. That also means that that's one farmer, and oftentimes who is out on the land, his own land, her own land, on their own oftentimes, and spending a lot of time by themselves. And that leads to what you're saying there. You want to let the farmers know that there are people out there to help them in many different areas.
Yes, exactly. So, for example, this year and last year, a lot of my focus has been helping with succession planning workshops, and that's to help farmers with the concept of how do we get all the wheels in motion to set up a successful transition plan between themselves, one generation to the next, whether that means within the family or with a new manager. And I can tell you that when you start getting into those topics, you always end up overlapping a bit with mental health as well, because there's a lot of pride and a lot of stress and a lot of debt involved with farming. And so when those things are coming up, there's a lot of factors mixed in with the business, right? It's a place where you live and work, and there's a lot of different parts to that puzzle.
I can imagine, yeah, and that's huge too, isn't it? Succession planning for farmers, any business, of course, that's a big thing when they are looking toward the future. But farming, indeed, and a lot of times people want to keep it within their own family. Sometimes that's possible, sometimes that's not. So I congratulate you for the work you do to try to help farmers out in that regard. Loren Van Ewyk is also with us here on Ask the Experts today on News Talk 1290 CJBK. And Loren, I'll go to you on this one too, and sort of talk about this right off the top in the discussion, because I look outside, it's another beautiful day out here. We are in the midst of a heat wave, and that gets a lot of people thinking about doing stuff, maybe getting away from their occupation for, if not just a day, but sometimes longer than that. A lot of times people look at weeks vacations, and this is the time of year that they do that. I'm just wondering, because you are a farmer yourself, among many other things, how does vacation work in the summer months for farmers? That has to be tough for them to step away from their line of work to get away, but sometimes you need to get away just to ease your mind sometimes. Is that a tough topic for farmers to be able to look into because they just have so much work on their land?
Yeah, well, absolutely. I mean, vacation, it greatly depends on the type of farm you have. And I want to be really careful that if somebody is, experiencing mental health, I don't want to say, oh, we'll just take a vacation. It's complicated.
Right.
For a farmer, it requires ensuring it's at the proper time of year, ensuring that the climate has cooperated with them, that they have specific laborers in place that are able to deal with whatever comes. Obviously, it never fails that when we go on vacation, some sort of crisis happens on our farm. And so, it's a bit of a complicated thing, but certainly one of the things that when I work with farmers, we talk about is let's plan, at least plan something, right? So it might be impossible for them to plan right now, a vacation. Obviously, with COVID, it even complicates things further. But what we can do is set aside time for rest. We can set aside time to spend some time with the family and go and do an activity. And so it is very difficult for farmers, certainly, to get away, and yet it is critical for our own mental health to ensure that we have rest away from our primary occupation.
Absolutely. And as you say, it's not as easy as just saying, take a vacation. There are steps involved, but in some capacity, try to take some time for yourself is basically what you're getting at.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Excellent. Great advice. Loren Van Ewyk with us here on Ask the Experts, a social worker in Lambton County, also a member of the Lambton Federation of Agriculture and a farmer herself. And also Janine Lunn is with us from the Ontario Federation of Agriculture. And again, you can visit their website, ofa.on.ca. And Janine, I'll ask you, and this is, again, I'm piling on the questions for you in sort of the same question format here, but first off, is it a big thing right now for farmers dealing with the pandemic? And put that also into summertime. Will this summer be different for farmers this year because of the pandemic that we're all dealing with?
Right. A really, really important question. Yes. So in some areas of farming, it's hard to notice that we're in a pandemic because plans are made, crops go in, crops grow, we hope. We look for rain, and all the steps still have to happen. However, there's been a lot of places affected by workplace issues because not every farm has been able to secure the workers they need. And there's also a lot of stress in families because, as you know, children that are in school have been out of school since mid-March. So a lot of people have families, and so there's a lot of families right now that are grappling with very real work demands, but also very real safety issues and keeping young people safe and occupied on the farm. So it is a lot to adjust to in amongst the situation of things have changed as well in how we market some of our foods right now and the backlog in certain sectors. There's beef farmers waiting for news to be able to process more beef. There's people with massive vegetable contracts that have had to change because the restaurant industry had to change at the same time. So certainly a lot of balls in the air. And I would say this summer might not look different, but it definitely feels different for farmers.
I bet there's a lot of challenges. And does that parlay into the farmers and the workers also possibly working a lot harder this summer to make up for maybe a lack of employment out there or employees working on the farm? I mean, is it a tougher summer in that regard that they're maybe putting in more hours as well?
I would think it would be very common in a lot of operations. I can think about a situation where if people had extra children home and the spouse normally does more of the farm work, that may have to change. I can think of situations where people may not have been able to get their full complement of their staff team to the farm, so they might be having to work more. And now that things are reopening, there may be more demands for the product, but they're doing a lot of catching up. So it can be a lot in a place where you're remote from towns and you're not as easy to access different types of possible other workers. So there's definitely people that are probably pouring on more hours than they even would normally in a busy time.
Absolutely. Janine Lunn with us here on Ask the Experts from Ontario Federation of Agriculture. And also we have Loren Van Ewyk. She is a social worker in Lambton County, a member of the Lambton Federation of Agriculture and a farmer herself. We will let our listeners know a little later on in the program what services are available if you are a farmer out there listening today and maybe do need some of the help that we are talking about. We will give some suggestions a little later on in the program with our special guests here on Ask the Experts on this very, very hot. How are you guys coping with the heat, by the way? Is it, I know you guys are in different parts of the province, but pretty hot where you are as well.
Yes, extremely. We kind of jump in the pool, go do some chores, jump in the pool, go do some chores.
Hey, you make that sound pretty good. Yes,
Definitely. And some of us also have what we call farmhouse problems. We have large, spacious farmhouses, lots of shade, and no way to air condition. So definitely the pool is a blessing to have in this kind of weather.
Absolutely. Yeah. We're all doing what we can, that's for sure. We'll be back here on Ask the Experts. Our special guests, Janine Lunn and Loren Van Ewyk, here on Ask the Experts on News Talk 1290 CJBK. Welcome back to Ask the Experts on News Talk 1290 CJBK. Loren Van Ewyk with us, and also Janine Lunn. And Janine is with the Ontario Federation of Agriculture, and Loren Van Ewyk, she is a social worker in Lambton County and a member of the Lambton Federation of Agriculture and a farmer herself. Loren, I will ask you how things are on the farm for you so far this year. And tell us what your farm is. Crops, livestock?
Sure. We raise sheep and lamb, which we sell direct to customer as well as through the local market system. It's hot right now. It's very hot. So things like deworming and that sort of thing are they take a little bit longer than normal. But our animals, they do well in the heat. So the barns stay fairly cool and lots of nice cold water for them.
Excellent. Yep. Keep them what do you call that? Not replenished, but hydrated, right?
Hydrated, yes.
That's
hydrated.
Very, very important. And Janine Lunn, I'll ask you as well, and I think we've brought this up on the program in the past, and I'll say it, there's sort of a stigma with farmers that they're tough people and they can get through anything, and if something needs to be fixed, well, if you know a farmer, take it to the farmer because they're going to be able to fix it for you. They're just that type of people. And if there's any tool or little gadget or device, well, they'll go out to the barn. They've got one stuck in a corner somewhere or on a shelf, and things will be good. But it seems like more and more we are talking about farmers dealing with stress and mental struggles as compared to previous generations. Are people opening up a little bit more on the farm, if we can describe it that way, about some of the stress and struggles that they are going through?
Sure, really great question. I believe mental health and stress has always been part of the human nature, and I know we've had generations before. If we really tapped into some of our histories, we would find people in our families in farming who had very similar struggles and had very difficult outcomes. And I think in today's culture, we're seeing more people willing to say, I'm not able to fix everything myself. Like you mentioned, the tools. We are, as farmers, some of us getting better at saying, I could ask for help for my bookkeeping. I could ask for help for my mechanic work. And sometimes the tune-up is needed on the mental side, and that's finding that coach, that listening ear, talking to another farmer we may have heard who's come out and spoken about their own challenges. I think the idea of keeping it all in can be quite dangerous, and it leads us to some coping mechanisms that are really unhealthy. So I'm seeing a change. But I do know that farmers tend to be solitary, and because we're removed from people, we've always been physical distancing, right? So we have to work a bit harder to bridge that gap between people and do that behavior of seeking help.
I love the analogy and comparing it to the tools that we have in the toolbox, and some we have and some we don't, I guess, is the bottom line. And Loren, I'll ask you as well, in your capacity as a social worker in the Lambton County area, is mental wellness different for farmers compared to other people?
Well, I mean, certainly farmers are 68% more susceptible to chronic stress than the general population, and I don't think that's well understood. There is a greater disconnect, we know, between the consumer and the producer, which is something that the OFA has worked diligently to try and bridge and continue to educate through different programs such as AgScape, which is very helpful. We know as well that, farmers typically experience isolation, longer work days, and then the factors of globalization and climate change have multiplied some of those stress factors that it used to be that many people experienced some of those effects, whereas now the population of farmers are more likely to experience some of the direct impact of those issues. So, what we are seeing is yes, there are, farmers are starting to become more willing. However, they are across the board less likely to participate in help-seeking behaviors. So. it certainly is something that we want to continue to address and work on.
Well, it's interesting, too. What was that stat? 68%, did you say?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah, and that was done recently by the University of Guelph. 68% are more susceptible to chronic stress than the general population. And the suicide rates among farmers are significantly higher, than other identified groups.
And that's amazing, and I'm going to say it. I mean, it shows how naive. I would have never known that as well. Like, that is amazing and important for people to realize. And, when you talk about stress, too, we joke about how often a topic of conversation is the weather, and I can get up in the morning, and if it's raining, well, that's not going to bother me because I get in my car and I come to work. But weather isn't a joke to farmers either, is it? Because that directly affects their livelihood on how the weather is on any given day.
It certainly does. And, for farmers, like I said, so it used to be that when you had a higher population of farmers, then there was a greater camaraderie among those who were experiencing that. And so now it typically they're experiencing more isolation than what was in the past. However, having said that, there's great hope. Farmers are resilient people. And when we can tap into the community, the farming community, we have found that there's great success. So even though those statistics are stark and discouraging on one form, a very another outlet of that is recognizing that they're also, they're very likely to help others out. They're very likely when they know that there's a need to work to fulfill that need, and so there's great hope.
Excellent. Well, that's good. We always like to hear positive comments, and hope is a good word to use. Before the next break here, Janine, I'll ask you as well, in your capacity with the Ontario Federation of Agriculture, what is the OFA doing about the struggles that we're talking about today that the farmers are undergoing?
Oh, certainly. So we've been involved for years with the University of Guelph and supporting the research they've been doing and helping to develop some tools, because we know that for now we have to bridge the gap, and we know that farmers need some specific tools to support their awareness of mental health. And so we have been involved in helping to support developing the In the Know program, and we're hoping to see that be branched across the province, and that would be a half-day session that folks could go to and learn more about what are the signs, what are the stressors, what makes farmers different, and how can we support each other in our communities. And the other aspect is constantly talking to government about our priorities, both provincially and federally. So we have the ear of government to make sure that there's a constant message of our farmers, like Loren has said, our farmers do have a high level of chronic stress, and we're looking for specific supports that would address the farm realities that aren't just a generic. We don't want cookie cutter. We want special language and approaches for our farmers because they are business owners in a unique remote setting. So we're continuing to work on that, and our website has a number of resources that are currently available for folks to reach out to, whether it's online or through phone calls and appointments.
Good stuff. And people can go to the website, ofa.on.ca. And here on Ask the Experts, we do pause here for some important messages, and back with more with our guests, Janine Lunn and Loren Van Ewyk, here on News Talk 1290 CJBK right after these. And welcome back to Ask the Experts on News Talk 1290 CJBK here on this Tuesday morning. Just a couple of minutes left. The show always goes by so quick. We have Janine Lunn with us, Capacity Development with the Ontario Federation of Agriculture, and Loren Van Ewyk. She is a social worker in Lambton County and a member of the Lambton Federation of Agriculture, and a farmer as well. And again, the website ofa.on.ca. I see a very distinguished group of people there. It is your directors to the provincial board, and I see an area farmer there, Crispin Colvin from Thames Centre, looking all dapper in the photo with all of your members. And Crispin actually happened to call the house a couple of weeks ago for something, and nice to see him there, and back on the directors with the provincial board for the OFA. Getting back to some questions for you guys, because as we mentioned, we only have a couple of minutes left. I'll go to you, Loren. If you could help farmers understand one reality about mental health, I mean, is there one thing that stands out that you would suggest to them?
Mm-hmm. Well, of particular importance that you're really not alone. Like I said, 68% experience, more chronic stress Many meet the classification for anxiety and depression, so you're not alone. What we need to do is talk to someone, because that just frees it up. Sometimes our mind just needs to hear what we're feeling to help reduce some of the pent-up emotion. And so we need to talk to someone. And when you talk to someone, it doesn't have to be, it can be anyone to start. It doesn't have to be a professional. Just get talking. Certainly, I encourage people to follow up. I encourage people, if you're struggling, continues, and if there's no relief, and it's important to find those resources that are available to you. And there's lots of qualified social workers like myself that have even programs for farmers to receive counseling services at a reduced rate. And so that is really the message. You're not alone, and let's talk about it.
Good stuff. And you recently also were part of an online mental health first aid course. How did that go over?
It was fantastic. We've received some really positive feedback from attendees. Certainly they wish it was recorded so we could continue to share some of that information, and it wasn't. But we are thankful for the Doomer Ag Foundation and Farm Credit Canada, as well as the other groups such as the OFA that have been working with the Doomer Ag Foundation. With the In the Know Project. So it was well attended, and I think there will be more of these programs available. So I just encourage people to kind of keep their ear to the ground and look for some emails from their local federations that will provide that information in order for them to participate.
And that certainly helps too, being connected, whether it's in person, but we find out so much more, especially in the last 4 months or so, that online is a great way to connect as well. So glad that you guys are stepping up and doing that. Loren Van Ewyk with us here on Ask the Experts, and also Janine Lunn with the Ontario Federation of Agriculture. I'll give the last word to you, Janine, in terms of what message from the OFA you'd like to get out there as we wrap up the program.
Well, it's a personal issue and a personal interest of mine that people understand that we're not alone, and we're not meant to shoulder our burdens alone, and we're not meant to be feeling ashamed if we have stress or if we're having a struggle. So just like Loren's been saying, talking to somebody is better than talking to nobody, and the sooner we get out some of our concerns and struggles, the lighter it can feel. And OFA is certainly interested in our farmers thriving, and so we're continuing to work on this file. And we just encourage people to watch the videos we've been working on. We have some mental health videos that are on our website that profile some very brave people who shared their stories as well.
Excellent. Janine Lunn here on Ask the Experts, and Loren Van Ewyk on News Talk 1290 CJBK. To both Janine and Loren, thank you so much for joining us, and some great information out there. And again, we'll give you a website one more time, ofa.on.ca. Have a great day.
Thanks so much, Ryan. Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you for coming on. Thanks to everybody for listening to Ask the Experts today on News Talk 1290 CJBK. We'll be back again tomorrow, another edition. Stay tuned. The news coming up in just a moment with Catherine McCutcheon. Have yourselves a great day.